All right, we are live. If you are listening, thanks for joining us. I'm Daniel, and I'm here live with a very special episode of the Built by Educators podcast. It's very special, not just because it's live, but I am here with Mike Williams, founder of CollabED, and we are celebrating the 1 year anniversary of CollabED. Mike, how are you doing?
Daniel, thank you for doing this. And I wanted to say out loud. I know I just said it before, but I wanted to thank you for the wonderful things you've been doing with this podcast. We're getting really a lot of great stuff out of it, and I am just immensely thankful for what you do. But yeah, I've been looking forward to tonight for a long time. CollabEd turns one. I think it was about 3 weeks ago, but really, it was the date that it was born. It was more the concept that was born about a year ago now, and in a year we've come a real long way, and I look forward to talking to you about it tonight.
Yeah, no, no, for sure. I mean, what does this mean to you? This 1 year anniversary?
It means a lot, right? No, and I won't get I won't get too into it, but the fact that we were able to hang around for a year has really it makes me feel good, and there's really there's one reason behind that, and it's because of all the people who have stepped up to make this platform what it is now, right? There's 60 something volunteers that are active in our organization, and they are doing a multitude of things, all in the name of teachers. And I'm gonna give you like the permission tonight to just kind of tell me to stop if I start veering off track here, because there's so much to talk about and so much that I've really been very proud of. But just to say that we've been here a full year, and that we are in the position that we're in is it's pretty hard to believe that we're having this conversation.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe let's start then. For anyone who's tuning in or listening who is new to CollabEd or hasn't heard of CollabEd, how would you summarize it? What have you built here? What are the offerings? What is CollabEd all about?
So uh, the dream was, let's start with the inspiration. The inspiration came from me being on LinkedIn and kind of going through LinkedIn and seeing people emerge as what they call teacher transition specialists, right? And I found myself like just blown away by the fact that this is more or less a job for some people now. And look, God bless them, right? Like if they're doing what obviously is in demand. But for me, it became the why. Why is that in demand? Why are people looking for teacher transition specialists? And so I started to look into the why. And if you ever need a sobering statistic in life, look into the amount of attrition and the amount of people leaving the teacher field. It's terrible, and honestly, it's such a shame, because every teacher that I know, every person that I know that goes into this field, they go into it for a reason. They go into it because they want to help kids, and that's never the reason that they want to leave. It's very seldom the kids that they want, the reason that they want to leave. So CollabEd is my answer to really plugging that hole, right? It's a place where I hope people can come for community. Um, I was kind of quoting the phrase "find your people," right? I want people to come here and find their people, right? I want people to come here for development. We have so many people in this field with so much education, right? And so many people with such good ideas, right? And we should be sharing that. It all shouldn't come from people who are development specialists. No, I'm sorry, right? What it should come from is the collaborative spirit that the teachers can and should have. And then finally, it's about eliminating the isolation. The teachers we talk to, the teachers I talk to, isolation is a common theme. And if you're not a teacher, you might say to yourself, well, if you're around kids all day, how could it be isolating? That's exactly how it's isolating. Like you're not around adults. You're not having that conversation. And I think that isolation builds into the frustration. And so, like, I wanted people to have a place to come. And this thing started out as a glorified Facebook. That's what it was, right? We first started long before most of the people on our volunteer roster, any of that, right? We were on a website called Group App, and all it was posts. That's it. And we have now grown from there into a place where you can work on your on your development through CollabED. Emily and her team have put together over 20 courses for us to use, and we're not talking about pedagogical driven courses. We're talking about, like, how do I make a lesson interesting? How do I converse with parents? How do I, the things that are practical, right? You have ThriveEd, where you can work on your wellness, right? And it's not like anybody's it's there for you. We have Emerge for those of you. The day you decide to become a teacher, in my mind, you're a teacher. So come on in and join us and learn about this, right? We have 8 different total platforms that come into one and provide this experience for some of the people, or some of the most genuine and some of the most wonderful people out there. And that's kind of where, I don't even remember what you asked me, but I hope that answered it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're talking about the different parts. There's just so much that CollabED has to offer. There's the discussion boards, as you were talking about. You know, uh, Obviously, I think the podcast is one of the great aspects, and the host of the podcast. But you mentioned ThriveEd, and that is one of my favorite parts of CollabED. Just speaking for myself, I do daily meditation, and I love the offerings that are there. To the reflection points, the meditations that are there. It's really something that I do 5, 10 minutes max a day. Every once in a while, I'll get into it. I'll do a 20 or 30 minute meditation, but it's rare. And it really just takes 5 minutes a day. And it doesn't have to be with meditation. I think each of these pieces represents something that you can come in and do and build that habit, right? 5 to 10 minutes a day. Come in, join a conversation, ask a question, offer some expertise, and as you said, join the community, find your people. Even if you feel like you have your people, right? Find more of your people on here. Um,
And you
and
just
yeah, you should
you
be so
el-
proud of what you built. There's just a lot that CollabED has to offer, as I said.
I appreciate that, and I think you eloquently put it in a way that I wish I had, right? Like, we built Elevate, or no, we built CollabEd into 8 different spaces because not everybody is into the same thing, right? There are some people who swear by meditation, and there are some people who've never done it, right? There are some people who, look, my classroom management's fine. I know how to speak to parents. Okay, well then that's not a course you take, right? That's not something you work on. And I think that was an important part of the design of this thing, because in the beginning it was one shot. So if you didn't like chats, if you didn't like talking to other people, you were not staying here, right? And so that's why I use the term ecosystem to describe what we've developed here, and I think it's a great word to describe it, because in science, when we talk about an ecosystem, we talk about all the things within a certain area, right? Well, these are the different things within inside of a teaching area. So I that yeah. So yeah. That's that. I'm glad you put it that way. It's what we're about.
Yeah, I'm thinking about your inspiration. You mentioned you were seeing the job of teacher transition specialist. I've certainly seen that out there a lot. I myself went through the transition. I taught for 9 years, and then I made the decision to leave the classroom, right? And I went through the soul searching, right? Looking into myself, what do I have to offer, right? And really went through this process of breaking down what does a teacher do and what are the different skill sets and how can I kind of take those piece by piece and what can I apply those to go do. Um, and you and I have also talked about, that this is a platform where sure you can find your people, but I think teachers who are in the profession who have stuck through it, especially through COVID, they're not looking for another echo chamber, right? Yes, we want to find our people, we want to build community, but I think what is keeping people going, and is my opinion, right? I think what's keeping people going is finding others that will challenge them, who will offer new ideas, who will offer a different perspective, and help them grow, right? Teachers are so strapped for time. I think if they enter a community where I've kind of heard this already, this sounds like people congratulating themselves, it's a bit of an echo chamber. I don't know if I have time for this, right? I'm looking for something new, I'm looking to grow, and that's what's keeping teachers going. So I think, anyone listening, when we say find your people here, we're not necessarily saying this is, find that echo chamber. I think to the contrary, this is a place where you can come and, challenge somebody, get challenged, and find an idea that's going to push you.
It's
I
so
don't know if
important.
if that resonates
No,
with you. I think that's what we're.
you're 100% right because you know if there's a difference between find your people and find your yes people. We're not looking for yes
Yeah.
people. Like, and I think you and I are a perfect example of that, right? When we came together and we decided you were going to take over the podcast, it wasn't this is how I want the podcast run. It was I want you to take it in a direction that you see it going because you see things differently than I do, right? And I think that like the best way I can describe it is that I think this is my 12th year going into teaching. I don't know. I don't remember. Um, but even me at times last year, I found myself just like lost with like what am I doing wrong? Why aren't these kids responding? Why not this? Why not that? And then I come back to look at things on our platform. Like you just did the podcast with Randy, right? And Randy has she's got so much about like technology and motivating students and this and that, right? And so like I'm not looking for her to look at me and say, "Yeah, Mike, teaching's tough." I'm looking for her to say, "Mike, you're not getting the engagement because the kids don't want to hear your mouth. They want to do this." Right? And then I go to work and it works and it's like, yeah. So yeah, you're 100% right.
Well, and to the point of this not being an echo chamber, I want to celebrate CollabED. That's what we're here, right? This 1 year anniversary. We should be having a party. I feel like we should have worn our party hats or something like that. But I also want to, what this conversation already is bringing up for me is this idea of those transitioning teachers. And you saw a need of why are so many transitioning away to the point where we have people whose job it is to help them with that transition. And you were saying, how can we keep them in? How can we create a sustainable profession here where people can stick it out? Now, my parents were, as I mentioned, I spent 9 years in the classroom and I made the decision to leave the classroom. Both of my parents are retired career teachers. That's what they did for their entire career. I also know people, fantastic colleagues, who did 2 years of Teach for America and moved out of the classroom after that little stint. And they're doing amazing things. Some of it in education, some of it not in education, but they had that experience in the classroom. And so, what it raises for me is this question of is the profession meant to be in it long term? And it's not a simple answer and it's not the same answer for everybody, but it's just a question that it raises for me of are the teacher transition specialists, or this idea that teachers are leaving, certainly in some places they're hemorrhaging teachers and it's a crisis. And overall, we need teachers. We need uh, teachers not just to stay, but we need people to enter the profession. We need transition specialists to help people transition into the profession. But I guess just what I'm thinking is it is a hard profession. And what does that look like? And maybe this comes back to CollabED and the vision of what does it look like to truly make it a sustainable profession where somebody can be in it long term and thrive.
Let me give you an example, right? So today, I was on a I think I was scrolling through Facebook, and I came across a post on a group where somebody got up and they were like, it was my third day of teaching today, and I am teaching kindergarten, and it's horrible. I hate it. The kids are all over the place. Like this, they're staggered entry, and they were all in. They were all coming in today, and it was just a nightmare. And I kind of chuckled when I read the post because I like it takes people who are veterans to see things that others don't. And when you look at a kindergarten classroom, it, the first couple of weeks are a nightmare, right? They are because it's the first time these kids are really away from their parents. They know nothing about school until what their parents told them. They're used to being taken care of right away. Some don't have siblings, so they don't have to wait for anything, right? Kindergarten is a frightening place in the first couple of weeks of school, right? And when I opened up that post, like I typed a comment in there and I'm like, listen, you're going through what everybody who has ever taught kindergarten is going through, right? And I tell you, when you look back at this, when you get to June, you're going to be like, I can't even believe that these kids were climbing up the walls in September, but now it's late May and June, and they're all sitting at a table working on a worksheet together, or doing something, and it's the arc of learning, right? And I think that's kind of where I came from an experienced teacher on this too. Was you know we're all dealing with situations now that are things that we've never seen before, right? Things that we've never experienced before as teachers. And so it just because we haven't experienced it doesn't mean someone else hasn't experienced it, right? And so when you have a place like CollabED, a place that I visioned was where somebody can go and say, "Hey, a kid stood up in front of me today and told me that I was the worst teacher that they ever had." Right? And well, we can give each other advice on how to deal with that, right? Because somebody did it yesterday. And now your advice is going to help the people that it come forward with, right? I made a comment about something like that, like a kid called me something, right? And it was something that I don't want to say on this podcast because then we have to explain it like explicit. But like all I said to the kid was, "Do you feel better now?" Right? And the person was like, "You said what?" I'm like, "Yeah." I said because that's what that kid needed in the moment. And 2 hours later, we circled back and we said, "We probably shouldn't be using that language in school. So let's not have this happen again." Right? And you moved on, right? And it's that type of advice that I hope would be shared in our platform, where it's like, hey, yelling doesn't work. This doesn't work. But, sometimes being a human works. So if in that moment that child knows nothing more than to call me a name, cool. Well, I'm going to try it my way. All right, cool. You good? We're good, right? And let's just walk away from it. And that's where I had hoped that we could share things so that it doesn't get to a point where somebody feels like they have to leave to be happy. So yeah, so there's a lot in the inspiration and why I did what I did and why I'm going to continue plugging away at this thing.
Well, it's a profession where you're confronted with your humanity. You're confronted with what it is to be human. And we've talked about this, my connection with the classroom and the theater and the rehearsal room. I think both are places where we are confronted with what it is to be human. And to be human isn't to be happy all the time, right? And so it's going to inevitably be this roller coaster. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, and it's how do you get through it? Who are the people who help get you through it? Um, I with the theater connection too. I had a director that I'm thinking about, Sam White. If by any chance he's listening, he's a fantastic director. But he gave me a piece of advice as an actor that has stuck with me, and it is make big choices, especially in the rehearsal room. He says, I don't care what you do, but make a big choice and we can work with it. And it just gave us the freedom to experiment and play. And I bring it up because, Mike, you've made a big choice with CollabED, a huge choice. And I want to get back to CollabED and what you said. And what is true about CollabED is that it is run on volunteer efforts. And I'm kind of curious. I want to hear you talk about the original idea. Was that always the plan? Run on volunteers, 100% free, or did some of these ideas emerge as you were building it?
So 100% free was sort of a non-negotiable for me. That was always something that I thought needed to happen. That was always something that I thought was was important, right? Um, and so that stuck with me for the duration. You know, the volunteer thing has been a very interesting dynamic. We've had some amazing people step up and come to the table, and I don't know that I ever thought that this thing would be completely supported by volunteers. Um, but it truly makes us a better organization to bring in the diversity of thought that comes with the volunteers. You know, there are so many people out there who look at things in a different way, and you know, professionally, I think that's important, and I think it's more important than people give it credit for. We often look and we say, disagreements are a problem. Disagreement. You know what? Disagreements are the way we move forward. Because you're considering someone else's opinion on things, and I've grown very in tune with that, and I want people to continue to come to the table and to bring what they have and say, hey, maybe this looks better this way. Maybe this great. Let's do it. I mean, in a perfect world, everybody in CollabED would be on a salary and we'd have an advertising budget and we would be $1 billion company, right? None of which are true, right? And that's a perfect world, but it's been fun trying to lead this thing through the challenges and through all of that, and just I again every day just grow in awe of the people who come to help this thing. I wish I had a stat with me, but I don't. Um, I'd say about 30 or 40% of our volunteers are not even teachers. Which, well, what are you doing there? Well, you know what? We have people who specialize in certain things, doing certain things. helping others. I mean, there are so many. Go through our engaged community. I mean, there's people there who will teach you about anything. There's people there who aren't even teachers yet, who just graduated, sharing things, right? That diversity, it it really helps you look at things in a different way. And so, you know, the vision, I always wanted this to be free. Funny story, when I first started this in July of last year, I opened it as an LLC, not knowing what a not for profit was. So it originally started out as a business, and I spent the first month saying to myself, well, how do I run a free business? You know, like, and the answer became, you don't, you can't, right? And so we had to make the switch. We had to go this route, and it's been hard. I mean, there's so much more we can do with the resources that we need, you know, and I'm gonna hold hope that we get there. We'll get there. We'll continue working hard at it, and you know, one day we will have an advertising budget, and we can reach more people, you know, and our community only gets better when we hit that milestone.
Yeah. Well, you said it was at the beginning, it was like an early Facebook, so that you got plenty of room to grow with that analogy. Maybe it
Let's hope.
will get there. But in a year, you mentioned 60 plus volunteers, right? You're engaging educators across 20 states, 20 plus states. You mentioned the challenges. I'm curious, is there one that stands out above the others? What's been one of the biggest challenges of the past year, and how did you get through it?
I mean, if you're talking personal challenges, the day still has 24 hours in it. You know, and I know that that sounds ridiculous, but it's the truth of the matter. The day still has 24 hours, right? And now you're trying to dedicate time to this, time to being a father, time to advancing your career, time to, you know, your job. So I think the challenge at times has been keeping up with the demands of what you're trying to create. Um, and I think from an organization, our biggest challenge is exposure. I think if more people knew what we offered, I think if more people knew that we weren't just a LinkedIn page, I think if more people knew that, you know, there's a whole platform behind this thing, that there would be a bigger drive to get people in there. So much so that, you know, in the coming days, I'm going to release a. I just updated our system to include referrals, and I'm gonna, because again, this is how I have to think, right? Because my biggest tool right now for getting our name out there is the tools uh, that I haven't currently at my disposal, which is people, right? Running a LinkedIn or an ad on Meta is at minimum $10 a day, and that gives you X amount of reach. It's stupid, right? Unless you're playing with big money, right? But we're gonna release. We've already released the software for it. It's in your My CollabED. There's a thing that says, you know, referrals, and then we're gonna have a scoreboard, and I'm gonna give it a month, and I'm gonna give a $50 gift card to the person who refers the most people, and I'm going to give a $50 gift card to the person who converts the most referrals. So, hey, I referred 50 and 40 joined. I'm sitting pretty, you know, or because it's the advertising budget that I have, and it speaks to the challenges that we face. But I still hold the belief that, you know, we just put some new people in positions where they're going to start advocating for us. They're going to start, getting our word out there. There's people who have been working in this space, in this not for profit space, and I'm hopeful that they'll be able to get our word out there and that we can start to to see some funding and let this work expand. But yeah, there's challenge. I mean, there's a lot of challenges. This is a new challenge every day, right? And just keeping up with it, and it's hard.
Sure. Yeah, of course. So, flip side from the challenges, I'm curious if they're, education, we're all about evidence of impact. Let's show that we're making an impact on students, we're being successful in what we set out to do. I'm curious if there's been a moment or a message from teachers or other educators on the platform or someone you were working with where you really got the message that this is working, this is doing what it's supposed to do, and it really kind of kept you going this past year.
There is there's a lot of encouragement. There's a lot of people who look at what we're doing, listen to what we have to say, and buy in automatically, right? I think one of our biggest success stories yet has been through our podcast guest Shane, who he is the superintendent of a small school district, but to hear him say what he said about what we're doing has been so incredibly powerful because he is somebody who was entrusted with an entire school district and he thinks what we're doing is right. So things like that. I mean, we're close to having some get-togethers with with schools here in New York that are loving what we do, right? And we're hopeful to be in front of them, but I think that from an evidence perspective, it's something that comes down the line because I still think we're early, so I'd be lying if I told you I had evidence. I mean, I can make anything up if you want, but like I think that the evidence for me right now is the reaction of people when I explain what we're doing here. And for right now, I think that's enough to carry it. But eventually, we're going to move this organization to be results driven and not results driven in the way that Walmart and Target and all them are, where it's like, hey, we have to have X amount. No, we're going to say, this is really working. People love this. So let's put a lot of our effort to expanding this. Right? And then it's, well, for some reason, this isn't hitting. So let's go back and figure out why. And I'll give you a perfect example. I thought we had a slam dunk home run in our Emerge platform, right? We had two people come out and volunteer to run teacher led groups for new teachers, for student teachers, for whatever. And for some reason, we can't even fill the first cohort, and it's almost there. It's so we will have about. I'm thinking when we start this thing, we're going to end up having about 8 participants. And look, it is better than none, right? But I swung and missed on this one real hard because I thought this was going to take off immediately. So we got to figure out what the blocker is. Why aren't people coming to it? And if that blocker is as simple as we just haven't been able to effectively get the word out there. And my LinkedIn reach, which is 1,700 connections, it's just not enough. And so we're gonna be there. We're gonna be at that game. It's gonna be something that we'll talk about as time goes on, right? But for right now, just the way people are reacting is how we're driving decisions.
Yeah, yeah. I appreciate you sharing, something you thought would be a home run and it just it's getting there, but it didn't work out the way you thought,
There's a lot. Look, I'm
yeah,
not. I mean, I'm not going to lie about it, right? I've tracked, and again, I don't know whether the trackers I'm using are right or not, right? So I track traffic through all of our sites every day, and I'm genuinely surprised to see where it's going, right? And so, just working on that small data set for now until we can get better data from the people that we're serving on how to do it. Because I can tell you this unequivocally, we have the team behind us who wants to do it right. We just need the team or the people to serve and the people to analyze that data from. So, look, I think we're close. I think we're a few steps away, and I'm gonna continue pushing.
yeah. I mean, it just makes me think about, reflecting after the year one of anything. Uh, could be a marriage, year one of teaching. Certainly, if you look back, you're going to have those moments. I think it's a great reflection to say, what did I think was really going to work, and it just didn't, right? And what does that reveal about the work, about me, about my students, about the need, whatever it is, or the first year of raising a child. I know for me, it was like got to year one, and I was just so happy that the child was still alive. My son, we we kept him alive for the year. That was the success. But there's so many moments where you thought it was going to be great, and it just wasn't. And so I appreciate hearing that. I think it's a good, honest reflection at the end of any year one to stop and think about that. But you've gone through many year ones as a teacher, a parent, and some of these things that I was mentioning. And if you just kind of, as we're talking, just kind of take a moment to soak in that it has been a year. I'm I'm just curious, like, how does that land for you, and what comes up just to say, I've I've done this for a year now.
I mean, those people who know who I am know that I'm a very persistent person. I don't like to let things fail. I like to look at things operationally. I like to fix things. I like to put things together. And so this year, I've learned a lot about myself. I've done things that I wish I could take back. I've done things that I wish that I would have better researched. I've done things that that are probably not the best way to do things, but I did them. And I think that the reflection for me is that, you know, I take it as a learning experience and I'm going to carry it forward now. And I'm going to work through those challenges. But I'm immensely proud of where we've come from and where we're going. And I hope that, the people who volunteer on this platform, I don't say it enough and I wish I said it more. I hope they understand that the pride is really on what they've done, and then I hope that they're as proud as I am of what's out there. And is it perfect? No. Are you going to go to a part of my website tonight? Or sorry, our website, and is it going to fail? You can bet your life on it, right? Because that's been the motto of this year, right? But each time we get back up and we fix it and we move on and we learn from that mistake, right? I don't even know if you know this, or if anybody knows this, but we actually have one volunteer. Her entire job is to stress test our system. So she goes into the system and she puts her hands on everything. She clicks every button. She clicks every option. She does it all. And she's so thorough, right? And she finds bug after bug after bug after bug on this website. And I tell you that story just because, you know, number one, I'm very glad that she's with us. But even there are so many people doing things in this organization that nobody even knows about, you know, and it's a job like that that's making somebody's experience on the other side of it easier and better, right? And so I am I am so incredibly proud of what we built. Um, am I telling everybody to drop their paying jobs and go out and run a not for profit tomorrow? No, I don't think we need to go that far yet. But I am saying that if you have a passion for something, if you have a love of something, right, then going out and doing something about that is really powerful, right? And you know, I lost my dad 3 or 4 years ago, and the ironic part, and I'm gonna get sentimental here for a second. You know, it's not something that often happens. My dad's name was Ed, and when you look at our website, everything ends with an Ed, and it wasn't done for like, I didn't name it after my dad, but it makes me think of him every time I see those two letters, right? And he was very big. My dad did not go to college. You know, my dad worked like a dog for 40 years, 50 years of his life, right? To make sure that we had the upbringing. You know, my mom too. And we were brought up in the fact that hard work was the way to succeed and the way to do things. And really, you know, it's part of why I am who I am today. You know, my parents taught me to be a good person, right? And sometimes I personally take that too far, and I take it too much time. But this is something I care about. You know, I didn't get the chance to become a teacher right out of college like I should have, because I was too busy working hard and not studying hard. And so you can bet when I got here 12 years ago that I took advantage of it. You know, and now, like, I'll never forget when I told my dad I got an adjunct position teaching at the school that I went to school at, in the School of Education. He was like, he was real proud of that, right? And I get to go to work on Monday nights this semester and teach people about something that I love to do. I mean, I don't know that I could get any more lucky, right? I don't know. So it's been a really cool experience. Like, again, I'm at a point now where I don't even know if I'm answering the question that you asked. So I'll throw it back to you because but yeah, no, there's a lot of pride.
I mean, the personal side of it, it clearly runs deep, and I appreciate you sharing that. You know, we're here celebrating the 1 year anniversary, and you know, I wish we were in person. We could raise a glass. You know, cheers to you, cheers to Collab Ed, and as you just shared, you know, cheers to Ed. I just learned that, and so I appreciate knowing that. I appreciate you sharing it. I think a final thought, you know, you started talking about the future a little bit, but if we're here 5 years from now and we're having this conversation on the 5 year anniversary, what does success look like? What does Collab Ed look like 5 years from now?
Success on success in that looks like that podcast 5 years from now having three other people in it who stopped from leaving teaching, who didn't quit because of what we're doing here, right? And again, I know it's going to come up, right? And because it comes up all the time. And here's one of those moments where maybe being too direct is not the best thing in the world, right? But like, I was online talking to somebody, you know, and I made a passion play for people not to quit teaching because the kids need us. And two people jumped right down my throat. And they were like, well, don't make people feel bad and don't do this and don't do that. And it was like, well, I'm doing something about it, right? I'm here. We're putting together something to stop people from going because I firmly believe that people that go into teaching are some of the best people in the world. And I don't want people to go to college for 4 years and then for another year to add a master's or two, have $140,000 in debt to walk away from a profession that they know they wanted to be part of for something that we could have prevented, right? And so success for CollabED is when you and I, in 5 years, are sitting having this exact same conversation with three people who said, yeah, I didn't quit because I realized I wasn't alone. I realized I realized that I was supported. I realized that there were people just like me out there who were struggling just like I am. And we worked through it. That's the success.
Love it. Inspiring, Mike. I think I hear that loud and clear, and I think that kind of brings us to a close with celebrating the 1 year of CollabED. Uh, you're tuning in and listening, and you want to join, you want to be a part of it, or at least check it out. CollabED.org. Come check it out. Find your people, see what little bit speaks to you, and check it out. Mike, thank you so much for what you've built.
Daniel, I appreciate you. Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye.